They thought it was just a doll. A gift. A harmless gesture from grandmother to grandson. But what arrived in the Donovan household was something far more sinister, something ancient, malevolent, and eager to torment. This is the true and terrifying account of the Donovan family haunting, one of Ed and Lorraine Warren's most disturbing and lesser-known cases. It began in the early 1970s in Connecticut. Mary Donovan was a grandmother who only meant well. She found an antique doll at a second-hand shop. It was old-fashioned, delicately made, and reminded her of something from her own childhood. Thinking her grandson would like it, she purchased it and brought it home. The doll was given to a young boy named Tommy, who lived with his mother, Janet Donovan. From the moment the doll entered their home, things changed. At first, it was subtle. Tommy began talking to the doll. Not unusual, considering children often create imaginary friends. But what alarmed Janet was that the doll seemed to talk back, or so Tommy claimed. He called the doll Mandy, and insisted she didn't like to be left alone. Janet dismissed it as child's play, until one night, she heard footsteps outside Tommy's room when no one else was upstairs. When she entered, Tommy was asleep, but the doll had moved. It was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting upright at the foot of the bed. That was just the beginning. Within days, the family began experiencing strange occurrences. Objects would go missing and reappear in odd places. The TV turned on by itself. Cold spots would linger in the hallway. And then there were the sounds, scratching inside the walls, soft giggles in the dead of night, and faint whispers that seemed to echo from empty rooms. Tommy began to withdraw. He became pale, distant, and claimed that Mandy kept him up at night. He said the doll would whisper things to him, terrible things. That people would die. That she was not a toy. That she had been alive once. Then came the nightmares. Tommy began screaming in his sleep. He'd wake up with scratches across his chest, scratches too deep and too violent to be self-inflicted. Janet, terrified, got rid of the doll, throwing it out into the trash. But the next morning, the doll was back. Sitting at the kitchen table. That's when things escalated. Janet began to see the figure of a woman standing at the foot of her bed. A translucent shape in a tattered dress, her eyes hollow, her expression angry and twisted. Lights flickered violently when she appeared. The house felt heavy. Suffocating. The family began hearing voices during the day. Not whispers, but audible speech. Screaming. Crying. Curses in languages they didn't recognize. One night, Janet woke to find her crucifix turned upside down on the wall. Another time, she discovered claw marks across the wooden floor, leading to Tommy's room. Desperate and terrified, Janet contacted their local church. But the priest, after hearing the story, admitted that it was beyond his ability. What was happening was not a simple haunting. It was something darker. That's when someone referred them to the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine Warren were no strangers to the strange. Known for their work on the Amityville case and the Paranormal family haunting, they had faced evil many times. But something about the Donovan family situation unsettled even them. When they entered the house, Lorraine, being a clairvoyant, immediately sensed the dark presence. She described it as not human. She said it wasn't the spirit of a dead person, but a demonic entity posing as a little girl to gain sympathy. Ed, a demonologist, asked Janet about the origin of the doll. When he learned it had been purchased from an antique shop with no known history, he grew concerned. The doll, he believed, was a vessel. An object of attachment for the demon. Their first investigation revealed shocking details. During one of their walkthroughs, Lorraine claimed the entity was attached to the boy and wanted to isolate him. She believed the spirit was using fear to feed off the family's energy, especially Tommy's innocence. The Warrens knew they couldn't leave the family vulnerable. They brought in a priest to perform a blessing and what Ed described as a lesser exorcism, a ritual designed to expel a demonic presence from a location without the full rites required for human possession. During the blessing, the atmosphere grew violent. Doors slammed on their own. Books flew from shelves. The doll was said to emit a deep, guttural growl. As the prayers intensified, Tommy screamed in pain, claiming the doll was biting him, even though it remained across the room. Lorraine later described this moment as one of the most spiritually intense battles she had ever faced. The demon resisted expulsion, clinging to the house and the child. But after hours of chanting, prayer, and defiance, the entity was driven out, or at least weakened enough to flee. The Warrens took the doll with them. It was locked in a glass case at their occult museum, placed beside another infamous cursed item, Annabelle. After the ritual, peace gradually returned to the Donovan home. Tommy's health improved. The scratches stopped. The voices faded. But the damage had been done. Though the haunting ended, the emotional scars never fully healed. Janet suffered from anxiety for years afterward, and Tommy, though eventually free from the torment, never spoke about Mandy again. Not once. Ed and Lorraine warned that objects can be dangerous. Especially when they come with no known history. A seemingly innocent item can carry a sinister past, one that longs to be awakened. They kept the doll locked away for the rest of their lives, never allowing anyone to touch it. According to Lorraine, the energy around it remained active for years. This case, while not as widely known as others, deeply affected the Warrens. Lorraine once said the Donovan haunting reminded her that evil often wears the mask of innocence. And Ed would later call it a textbook example of demonic manipulation through an object. The Donovan family haunting serves as a chilling reminder that not all hauntings involve old houses, or cemeteries, or tragic deaths. Sometimes, evil hides behind a child's smile, or a porcelain doll's glassy stare. And when it knocks, there may be no warning. Only whispers in the dark. If you think this story sent chills down your spine, there are countless more lurking in the shadows. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next true haunting might be closer than you think. Until then, sleep tight. And whatever you do, don't answer if the doll starts talking back.